From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Keishan Hayes. The Venezuelan government is lashing out at the European Union for its response to the attack on Nicolas Maduro. In a statement, the European Union External Action Committee said even though it condemns any form of violence, it expects that Venezuela recognizes the National Assembly's constitutional powers, which includes full respect for immunity for its members. The National Assembly voted to remove immunity for members believed to be behind the attack. And Foreign Minister Jorge Arias said via communique that the investigations were carried out by the competent authorities according to the rule of law. The immunity had to be lifted so that they could be prosecuted according to Venezuelan laws and regulations. Arias also took to Twitter to lash out at the members of the Lima group of countries, saying that the cartel were silent accomplices of the assassination attempt against the president. He said they sympathized with the terrorist planners and the attack that demonstrated their support for violence and death. He also took aim at Chilean Foreign Minister Roberto Ampuero, calling him an accomplice as well. Arias added that in Chile, justice frees the terrorists of the Pinochet dictatorship, while in Venezuela, justice acts to protect the people, democracy, and to avoid a tragedy. And just a short while ago, President Maduro was speaking at a meeting with the generals and admirals of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces, where he continued to blame Colombia for the attack.
The
assassination attempt on August 4th is just one of many violent events. It is a global strategy to control political power and seize the economic resources of our country. The Bogotá oligarchy is the main instrument of the U.S. empire to influence and dominate Latin America and the Caribbean. My assassination attempt was planned for months at the Nariño Palace in Bogotá. I have no doubt about that.
Let's take a look back on how residents of Caracas reacted to the attack.
The emblematic Bolivar Avenue in Caracas seems different from the usual buzz. The memory of the assassination attempt that occurred days ago is still fresh.
On Saturday, I was celebrating the National Constituent Assembly anniversary, celebrating the first year after the riots and violence when the assassination attempt happened.
The 81st anniversary of the Bolivarian National Guard was broadcast on national television, when according to preliminary investigations, 2 drones model M600, each one with a kilogram of C4 explosives, tried to approach President Nicolás Maduro and detonate.
We feel helpless because it's not fair. Venezuela has always been a country of peace, love, and brotherhood. It is not fair that they want to attack our country.
One of the drones flew over the presidential stands, but the security operations team distorted its signal, taking it outside the perimeter, crashing and injuring 7 officials. The second drone lost control and exploded in this building of downtown Caracas.
I was at my apartment on the 7th floor when I saw one of the drones approaching. It seemed like it was out of control. When it was 3 meters away from my apartment, it blew, creating a column of smoke that reached the 8th floor.
Residents of the area witnessed 2 vehicles in a parking lot transporting the drones and activating them.
I saw the drone, and another person next to me also saw the drone, so we said to each other that there's no way that a gas tank will explode, because we have the gas installed by pipes, and no one has gas tanks here. It is forbidden.
The Venezuelan Ministry of the Interior immediately opened an investigation for the crimes of terrorism and the assassination attempt. Authorities said that those who plotted the attempt have already been identified. 6 people were detained.
It wasn't only an assassination attempt against the president, who was the main target. It should also be described as a massacre, because we were there, and there were also leaders of the public powers and the military high command. If the goal was for the drones with explosives to reach the stage, let's imagine what would have happened.
While the investigations are still underway, President Nicolás Maduro has the support of his people.
Staying in Venezuela, the National Transportation Census will take place on August 12th to optimize fuel distribution. It's part of the new National Economic Program.
From early in the morning, members of the public transportation sector and locals have taken part in the national transportation registration process.
It is a good initiative for Venezuelans. The gasoline situation is delicate. They are smuggling gas out of the country. So this is a good measure for the Venezuelan people to solve transportation issues, and it is a great initiative promoted by the Bolivarian government.
People who attended the registration process say it seeks to strengthen public and private transportation and to guarantee better mobility across the country.
I believe that we must register. It is important because we will have a better control system. I know it's a difficult situation. Gas subsidies are very expensive. It's difficult for us to have access to gasoline. We must be supporting all these initiatives because the government will have a record of how many public transportation members need more benefits.
Community organizations will be the key to achieve the best results out of this process.
It is important that community organizations are part of this process. We are working together with the different social sectors. We need these people's power to prevent fuel smuggling and to set better gas prices for consumers.
There are more than 1 million Venezuelans who have gone to the 75 registration points throughout the country. An ID card and the Homeland card are the only things required to be incorporated into the gas subsidy system.
At the United Nations, the Venezuelan ambassador Samuel Moncada told the committee that he had strong words against the United States, saying that they are not sincere about human rights. The UN was about to appoint former Chilean President Michelle Bachelet as the next UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
The day the government of the United States decided to stop immigration measures of separating migrant children from their parents and lock them up in cages. The day the U.S. government stops using drones for selective murders. The day the U.S. president stopped accepting torture as a legal method. The day the U.S. government closes down clandestine jails where hundreds of people are detained without any legal accusation or fair trial. The day the U.S. government stops discriminating thousands of Puerto Rican people left behind after receiving a powerful hurricane. The day the U.S. president stops insulting nations using degraded terms. Only when that day comes, we will believe they support human rights.
And Bachelet will take up her new position as UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on September 1st. In a video posted to Twitter, she said that she was deeply humbled and honored by the appointment and pledged to bring all of her energy and convictions to the job. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Bachelet takes office in a world of rising hate and inequality.
I feel very honored by the proposal made by the Secretary General for me to be High Commissioner for Human Rights of the United Nations, and also of the approval in the General Assembly. So I will accomplish with all my strengths, all my energies, all my convictions this great task that aims to give dignity and prosperity to all people.
Let's take a short break now. Join us again after this. Look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Martínez, venezolano, 18-757-028. Hoy, jueves 9 de agosto. Hace varias semanas fui contactado por Julio Borges, quien me pidió el favor de pasar a una persona de Venezuela a Colombia. Se trataba de Juan Monasterio. Me contacté con él a través de la mensajería.
¿Entrenaron en Colombia los conspiradores? Sí. ¿Tuvieron dificultades en meter los drones a Venezuela? Sí. La primera tentativa falló. Y por eso Requesens los ayudó sin saber que estaban tratando de meter unos drones con explosivos. Requesens no sabía. Requesens solamente tenía el contacto en el puente fronterizo y facilitó la entrada de Monasterio a Venezuela.
Welcome back. Argentine social activist Milagro Sala has begun a hunger strike after being transferred to a detention center. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has more.
Milagro Sala carries out her fourth day of hunger strike, which started after being transferred to the Salta Detention Center. The Freedom and Social Committee announced they will organize a march to the Supreme Court to demand the fulfillment of the provisional ruling by Inter-American Court of Human Rights in December 2017, which ordered Milagro Sala to serve her sentence under house arrest in the province of Jujuy. Next week is the deadline for the state to say why the social activist was transferred to a detention center. Sala said she was physically abused during the transfer. That claim was confirmed by doctors who reported it to the Inter-American Court.
Sabrina Roth there. In Costa Rica, hundreds of people hit the streets to protest violence against women in San Jose. Last weekend, a Spanish woman was murdered and raped, and a Mexican woman was murdered in the country. The protesters held candles and banners, read poetry, and asked the authorities to stop the femicides and attacks on tourists. Today, the Costa Rican prosecutor's office confirmed that a 44-year-old man was arrested in connection with the murder of the Mexican woman. The head of the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala and the Guatemalan Attorney General are calling for an investigation into President Jimmy Morales. The president is suspected of illegally financing his 2015 campaign. Attorney General Consuelo Porras told a news conference that they found new facts that point to Morales failing to report almost $1 million to the Electoral Authority. They are seeking to have some of the president's privileges removed. Morales has said that he will rely on the institutions to carry out the investigation fairly.
We request a preliminary hearing against Mr. Jimmy Morales, President of the Republic of Guatemala, for facts related to his capacity as National Secretary of the political party National Convergence Front. It was established that Mr. Jimmy Morales, in his capacity as General Secretary, did not report the contribution of funds which went to the payment of the electoral prosecutors and the printing of flyers that contributed to his campaign.
Another social leader has been killed in Colombia. The Association of Indigenous Cabildos in the north of Cauca condemned the killing of Emiliano Troches Yonda near his home in Santander de Quilichao. He was an indigenous governor and director of the Association of Indigenous Cabildos. Colombian Vice President Marta Lucia Ramirez condemned the killing, saying that the government will seek to protect all citizens, especially minorities and indigenous communities. Members of the Congress of the People in Colombia denounced the increase in violence against social leaders. There have been 3 murders in the last 3 days.
There has been an increase in violence against social organizations, especially in the southeast area of the country.
In the past 3 days, there were 3 social leaders murdered. They were contributing to fulfill the peace agreement signed in Havana between FARC members and the government. They help campesino communities with the land distribution process. It's been a constant threat, especially in rural areas where social leaders help many communities. They are also attacking, intimidating, and treating members in the cities.
Earlier this week, the governments of the United States and Ecuador announced the creation of a new office to deal with security issues. Ecuador's Minister of Defense, Osvaldo Harín, confirmed the military cooperation with the United States.
The Ecuadorian Ministry of Defense has announced the establishment of the new Security Cooperation Office in Ecuador. The ministry was careful to stress that the new entity would not violate the country's constitution, which was amended under former President Rafael Correa to ban the permanent presence of foreign troops in Ecuador.
The announcement made by the Minister of Defense was a surprise for us. We didn't know anything about it. We are open to dialogue with any other country, not only the United States, to reinforce security measures in the borderline.
The Defense Ministry also says there will be a special plane that will fly between Ecuador and the United States, which will be used to gather and share intelligence. It will stay for 3 or 4 days and then return. The ministry stressed it doesn't mean that a new military base is being established.
We are talking about an airplane that will gather special information. The airplane staff will have to sleep in a specific place. I don't think they will stay in a hotel. Most likely, they will stay in an Ecuadorian military base.
The ministry pointed they are working with different countries as Japan, France, Spain and China to strengthen bilateral relations to protect the country. However, several authorities have raised concerns about the decision taken by President Lenin Moreno.
Se intensifica casi de minuto a minuto.
Minute by minute, the nation and the region's security is at risk because of the presence of U.S. military troops. All of the past events occurred in a way to justify the U.S. embassy intervention, the visit of the political figures, and the visit of the highest U.S. officials to Ecuador.
Tan escandalosa y tan a modo como para justificar la intervención.
This decision comes after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence's visit in June. Decisions taken included not only discussions regarding expanded U.S. security, assistance and commercial ties, but also consideration of a possible future bilateral trade agreement between the two countries. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
In Barbados, Minister of Tourism and International Transport says revenue from their cruise industry is declining. Minister Kerry Simmons said last year there was a record number of tourist arrivals, but tourists in Barbados spent significantly less than in other Caribbean islands. In 2015, the regional average for spending was $104 per person. In Barbados, it was just $78 per person. In 2017, the regional average was $120 per person, but in Barbados, it remained the same.
Against the region, Barbados cannot feel comfortable, on average, with a revenue from an industry which has been as long in existence as cruise, which has attracted as much effort as this country has put into it as the cruise sector. In a circumstance where we are earning $42 on average less than the regional average. And we most certainly cannot feel comfortable if we are comparing ourselves to the very best in the region and are earning approximately 100 United States dollars less.
Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has announced plans to help Dominica retain Ross University School of Medicine. The announcement comes as Dominica grapples with the loss of the medical school post-Hurricane Maria. Last week, the school, which operated for 40 years in Dominica, announced the move to Barbados. Prime Minister Brown said via a statement his government is willing to provide incentives that would be able to enable Dominica to remain attractive to Ross University. One of the incentives outlined is for the lowering or the elimination of transit taxes. This would assist students heading from Dominica to the UK, Canada and the US.
The other CARICOM countries are aware that this move from Dominica will have a significant impact on the Dominican economy, and that other CARICOM countries must also be prepared to help in some way. The manner in which the help can come was not stipulated by the Prime Minister, but he believes that we've practiced it before and we can practice it today as well. And he's also suggesting that it might be a CARICOM-wide phenomenon, and we must help to fashion a CARICOM-wide solution to a problem such as this.
Let's take another short break. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Members of Antifa, an anti-fascist group, marched through the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday to pay homage to Heather Mayer. Hale was an activist who was killed last year when white nationalists clashed with counter-protesters. The two groups plan on having competing demonstrations again on Sunday. Law enforcement agencies have made extensive plans to combat any potential violence this year. Staying in the U.S., an airline employee stole an airplane at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport on Friday and crashed it. The plane was chased by 2 military jets before crashing. No other passengers were on board. The 29-year-old pilot was suicidal, according to local officials.
Again, there's no indication that there was an attempt to attack anybody or anything other than taking an airplane without permission, stealing an airplane, and flying it around. Apparently the person had enough training, enough sense or whatever to be able to maneuver it somewhat.
And finally, in Bolivia, man's best friend may also be his best ally in the fight against drug trafficking, as the country's Drug Training Center for Drug Detecting commemorates its 40th anniversary. These canine crime fighters are playing an increasingly vital role in police operations in South America and the wider region.
Every dog certainly has its day at the Dog Training Drug Detention Center in the city of Cochabamba, where these four-legged crime fighters are on the job.
We specialize training dogs to detect drugs and explosive devices. We also train guide dogs and veterinary assistance dogs.
This is an international center where police officers from other countries, such as Ecuador and Brazil, receive professional training.
What we are practicing in this school is the object association by smell, which means we cover an object, which can be a towel, a ball, with the scent that we want to detect, such as cocaine, hydrochloride, or marijuana. Based on a national law, we have developed special odor rooms to do our job.
One of the concerns surrounding this type of centers is that the dogs can become addicted to this substance. After a few training sessions, there is, however, no evidence to support this argument. The dogs are also trained to detect explosive devices and counterfeit money.
Dogs can detect lithographic ink used to print bills, such as euros, and our own national currency. We carry out our operations mainly at airports, where we first make the dogs smell several objects with different scents, so they will be able to detect it later on.
Of the 95 dogs in this training center, 14 are puppies, while 100 more have been trained in the past year to work across the nation. These animals are crucial to crime-fighting efforts, since Bolivia has been used as a major transshipment point.
We haven't found many cocaine laboratories, but we found more drugs coming through the country's border. We found drugs in vehicles, backpacks, and aircrafts. Drug trafficking has increased in the past year.
A dog can detect up to 16 scents. They are trained in a period of 1.5 years. They start when they are 2 months old and retire after 8 or 9 years of service.
And that story brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And of course, you can find us on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Kijan Haynes. Thank you for watching.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur. In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone.